I'm going to turn it over to you, but I do need to make one announcement.
Okay.
In that little slide, it said that our CCC gathering is going to be in June. No, it's been postponed to October 14th through 17th at White Eagle Lodge in Montgomery, Texas. One other thing I want to remind people is if you would like to get our once a month listing of people who are speaking, we always have amazing guests, just put your email in the chat and we'll pick it up and add you to our list. So now, Olivia, without any further ado, over to you, my dear.
Thank you so much, Noelle, and thank you, Bob. It's wonderful to be here. I've become a co-creators conversation groupie, and it's an honor to be here and see everyone. And we're going to have Reverend Meli lead us in a centering exercise, which is the Sunray heart chant. So we will mute ourselves so we can hear her lovely voice, and then we will jump in with our program.
Seated with your spine erect and relaxed at the same time, breathing easily, naturally, fully. As we breathe in, we sense coming from the heart of the earth, support, love, our breath. It rises up our central channels, crests over the top of our heads. And as we exhale that breath, we send gratitude. Inhaling support, exhaling gratitude. And once more, inhaling support from the earth and exhaling gratitude. And from our hearts, we send out rose-colored waves of compassion that, like the ripples in a pond, these waves of compassion radiate out, touching all beings, and also return to our hearts. And as we send out this compassion, we sing this chant, the sound of ease, ah, and a prayer to Akteshnaina. The dew is on the grass and the people are happy. Ah, 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 Akteshnaina, Akteshnaina, Ani kokone, Ani kone, Teshna, Akteshnaina, Akteshnaina, Ani kokone, Ani kone, Teshna. Wado, thank you.
Thank you so much for leading us in the heart chant to Akteshnaina, the great mystery. We're so grateful to see all of you here today after the inspiring World Unity Week, and which now continues through September with 99 days of peace. So we're in good company. And we want to lead a conversation about our Peace Village, which was founded by Venerable Dhyani Ywahoo, who was invited to offer prayers to the fire on the evening of the solstice. So it was a great honor for us to join in. We want to converse together about her Cherokee Peace Village as part of this 99 Days of Peace. And we want to invite you to join us in conversation after we've presented to you a few things that we offer at the Peace Village. Sunray Meditation Society and Peace Village Land Trust is an international spiritual organization dedicated to world peace and reconciliation. It is the home of the Green Mountain Ywahoo and Sunray Meditation Society. Since 1992, it has been recognized by the United Nations as a non-governmental organization. I'm Olivia Cheever, Sunray Council member and Sunray Peacekeeper. I'm joined this evening by my Sunray Peace Village community members. Reverend Meli is a Sunray minister and primary teacher in the Peacekeeper training, which was created by Venerable Dhyani. Also, Sandy Sheridan, who has been our UN representative for many years, as has Carolyn DiCarlo, who is also joining us tonight. Sandy also teaches in the Peacekeeper training program. Julie Jeffery is a longtime practitioner of the Peacekeeper training. Venerable's curriculum is based on Cherokee or Tsalagi, as we say, and Tibetan Buddhist peace building precepts and practices. Sunray Peace Village is located in Lincoln, Vermont. Odali Utugi is its Cherokee or Tsalagi name. It means the mountain of hope and was established in 1987 by Venerable Dhyani Ywahoo, a 27th generation lineage carrier of the Ywahoo lineage, to fulfill a prophecy long held by Indigenous peoples and envisioned by her grandparents. As members of this global Sunray peacekeeping community, we hope to give you a sense of what such a Cherokee Peace Village is about, its history, what we offer there, and how it impacts the world today. Then we'd like to open up to any questions or comments you might have. We'd like to share 3 offerings tonight to give you a taste. The first is Sunray's largest annual event, which is our Native American Elders Gathering, which always takes place at the end of July. Since this COVID pandemic, we have been bringing elders to you both online and in person. You will hear how it fulfills the prophecy. We will share an excerpt from our award-winning documentary, Peace Village, filmed during several elders gatherings. Number 2, we will share from Venerable's Peacekeeper training, a teaching on how wars start. And finally, through our United Nations representatives here tonight, we will share some of Sunray's work at the UN on behalf of Indigenous peoples. Then we would love to hear from you. First, by way of bringing you to Odali Utugi and showing you the beginning of one of 3 documentaries filmed at past elders gatherings, we would like to share what one of our Cherokee elders, Grandmother Patricia Deasces, has shared about the Sunray Peace Village Elders Gathering and why it is important for this time of purification on our planet, especially. Here is an excerpt from a letter she wrote in 2012, which is no less relevant for these challenging times today. This is Grandmother's words. There is a prophecy among the American Indian tribes that we have known forever. The prophecy is that the day would come when we were to share our spirituality with all people. This was difficult to foresee. This is happening at the time when the US government made it a crime for American Indians and Alaska Natives to perform any of our spiritual ceremonies openly. Punishment was to be meted out if our people did not adhere to this order. This is the time that the ceremonies and the passing of the medicine had to be done in secret. This caused some of the ceremonies to be lost and parts of it to be changed in order to be carried out in secret. The important thing to note is the essence of the ceremony would not be altered. With the passage of the American Indian Religious Freedom Act in the late 70s, this allowed the ceremonies and teachings which had been done in hiding and privacy to once again be practiced openly in our communities. With the advent of this action, the elders began to do just that and to begin the fulfillment of the prophecy to share with all people. The sharing of this way of living began to be shared and continues to be shared at the Sunray Peace Village in Lincoln, Vermont. This Peace Village in Vermont is the first modern Peace Village that I know of. The Peace Village is a replica of Cherokee traditional Peace Villages. The dream of creating this in modern times was carried out by my clan sister, Venerable Dhyani Ywahoo, and had been a vision of her grandparents, a place where spiritual elders and medicine people of many nations come together to carry out the prophecy. Spiritual elders and medicine people who come here know that these agreements were made by each one even before we came to Earth, and is a fulfillment of that commitment. Just as the elders are aware of what they are doing with their sharing of these teachings, those who come to the gathering with an open heart, mind, and spirit are also carrying out this prophecy. Why is this such an important prophecy? One only has to look at what is taking place on our planet to see that people are hungry to know what is available for all without dogma, exclusion, and teachings. The teachings are done with love and compassion. Therefore, we can see that we are all important to weave the fabric of the help for all peoples and the planet. The sharing of the elders shows how we can live together in harmony and peace. That peace and love are not just words, they are powerful ways of being. The elders show this through the way they live the teachings of old. As each of the people attend these teachings and embrace some principles of the old teachings, it creates changes within an individual's way of being. It creates change in that person, their family, their small community, and their larger community. I call that the power of one. And Noel, if you would show the first part of the Peace Village documentary, that would be wonderful.
We are dreamers in a dream, may recall we are one. And the third fire, the intelligence to build, co-create. With penetrating insight, it is revealed. We are dreamers in the light. One thought, one field, becoming many. Let us observe this sacred light. Odali Utugi Ivika Nuati Guatuidu Guatuidu. We are people of many nations, and our heart is one with the remembrance that we are one in the light. I ask other elders, if you wish, please come and make a prayer.
It's a great honor, and we should give our gratitude to Dhyani. She provides this place. We are in crisis, and if we see what has happened over the years, that they don't pay attention and they don't give the proper respect to this planet. Now you see where we're at. And that's why it is most important that people come together in a peaceful way and a respectful way. And people might say, it's too late. It's never too late. It's never too late to understand, and it's never too late to seek out insight. And that's why you're here.
It's your task to take in your community, to teach how to communicate again with the Mother Nature. We're not made by machine. We're not made in a factory. We are just a small part of the nature. In the Maya beliefs, we are the children of the corn. The corn is mother. The corn is sacred. This is our meal every day in Guatemala. But what happened now? Government, they're talking about how to use the corn for oil. And then they want to steal our food. What the children, they will eat. What we will eat in the future.
Es fácil amar a la Madre Tierra.
It's easy to love Mother Earth.
Cuando llegaron a este continente, gente, le decían,
When people arrived to this continent, they said,
véndeme un pedazo de tierra.
sell me a piece of your land.
Y ellos contestaban, ¿cómo te puedo vender a mi madre?
And they would answer, how can I sell you my mother?
Toma la que necesitas.
Take whatever you need.
Rezo porque volvamos a vivir ese potencial de Quetzalcóatl que somos.
I pray so that we can live that potential of Quetzalcoatl, that's the
somos.
humanity who we are.
Y eso se nos ha olvidado.
And we have forgotten all of this.
Y es tiempo que recordemos
And it's time to remember
que somos hijos de la tierra,
that we are sons of the earth.
que somos hijos del sol
We are children of the sun.
y que nuestra familia de las estrellas
And our family from the stars,
nos espera
they are waiting for us.
y que podemos irnos con todo y cuerpo,
And that we can rise with all our body.
porque los 4 elementos están dentro de nosotros.
Because the 4 elements are inside of us.
El abuelo fuego
The grandfather fire
es lo mismo que el sol.
is the same as the sun.
The fire is a gateway, a doorway. It is a conduit. It is the first telegraph, the first television, the first internet. And so people actually can see one another through the fire. And the elders who have come here, they have come from quite far. And they come with great generosity and incredible wisdom. In the simple words, in the movement of a hand, in the glance of an eye, they reveal that we are one human family.
To know us, Creator, and all the powers of the universe. We give you thanks for the breath of life, for all things possible, and the great mysteries of all the universes. We give you thanks for the creation of Kizos, Nagawas, Nukmas Pongwas, the star beings, the 4 directions, the guardians of the 4 directions, and the healing elements. We give you thanks for the creation of all our relatives.
In this precious time we have together, we are invited to trace the roots of wisdom, to look within the heart of the fire, the very heart of your body, and make a connection with all your mothers and all your fathers. And when we look and examine within the heart and connect with all those who have been our parents, it becomes clear that we are one family, a human family. And as such, we have some very special gifts that are encoded within. They are called original instructions. They are within the DNA, they are within the space that you arise from. As we listen to the flow of the water, the sweet sound of the wind, we can also hear the voices of all those who have walked before and those who are yet to be born. Because in this very moment, all futures are arising, all past exists. So as we make peace within our own hearts, then we are also assisting the transformation of aggression upon this planet.
In Venerable Dhyani's book, Voices of Our Ancestors, Cherokee Teachings from the Wisdom Fire, she shares that sound came first in the formation of our universe, and that the Tsalagi originally came from the Pleiades to Elohimona, the land of Atlantis, before migrating to America, where eons later, we now gather together at the fire in the Peace Village Arbor. And I'm going to introduce our wonderful Reverend Meli that you've already heard with the heart chant, and tell you a little bit about her background. And then Reverend Meli will share more about elders and also our wonderful Peacekeeper training. Through her father, Reverend Meli, AKA Mary Kitchens, is part of the Western Cherokee diaspora that journeyed to California during the Dust Bowl of the 1930s. She is a Sunray minister in the Ywahoo tradition and was a high school English teacher for 30 years. She is a primary teacher in the Sunray Peacekeeper training and is chairperson of the Marin American Indian Alliance in California. Reverend Meli, a talented musician, is also the drum keeper for Unole, a drum group that has been nominated for a Native American Music Award. Unole is the Cherokee word for wind or breath and air, and it has just released its second CD, Hand in Hand, available wherever you download music. Please take it away, Reverend Meli.
Thank you, Olivia. And thank you, Bob and Noel, for making this time together possible. Greetings, relatives. Osio. Osio is the Cherokee greeting word, and sometimes we shorten it to Sio. So I was asked to talk about what is the Elders Gathering, and I hadn't seen that documentary in many years, and that I thought that was a wonderful introduction. And when Abuela Margarita said, the stars are waiting for us, oh, you know, so many of the elders in that documentary have now gone to join the stars, and it was so beautiful to hear her and to hear and to see all those elders again. And that relationship with our precious elders is really one of the key tones of our elders gathering, is that establishment and continuance of that relationship. As Grandmother Patricia reminds us, in many indigenous nations have that prophecy that this day would come when they would share appropriate spiritual teachings with all people to make sure that all future generations have land to walk upon and air to breathe and water to drink. Those first sacred medicines. For 38 years now, Venerable Dhyani Ywahoo, Sunray's spiritual director, the Sunray Peace Village and Sunray Meditation Society have been fulfilling that prophecy through our annual Elders Gathering. It feels important for me to acknowledge that there are ceremonies and practices that are kept bundled and are only done within the appropriate clans and nations to whom those ceremonies belong, and that's appropriate. But there is much indigenous wisdom to be shared for the benefit of all. So the Elders Gathering is a place for everyone of like mind and heart, committed to live in harmony with the earth and all living beings. When we come together at the Peace Village, or online now, we learn together, we listen to our elders, we share, we sing, we dance together as a spiritual community. The elders, indigenous elders, quantum physicists, environmental and earth scientists come together with the community from all walks of life and many different nations. The elders share their wisdom, reveal sacred teachings within ancient prophecies, and we engage in community discussion about building a new way of walking in harmony with Mother Earth and all our relations, those that walk and crawl and swim and fly, our relatives that walk upon 2 legs and 4, the plant people, the stone people, the tall standing people who give us humans oxygen. This year, my light just went out. Let's see if I can get it back. There we go. This year, the Elders Gathering will be a hybrid event, as you've heard, live streamed from the Peace Village in Lincoln, Vermont. The theme this year is land, caretaking Mother Earth. And as you've heard, the Peace Village is a replica of a Cherokee Peace Village, sometimes called a white village, where all people, no matter what had happened, historically could come for refuge and for spiritual retreat and training. And many who come to the Peace Village come to learn about peacekeeping, to be a peacekeeper. And what does that mean? What is peacekeeper training? And what is a peacekeeper? Peacekeeper students come from many spiritual paths and many backgrounds to study and build skills in fulfilling our shared commitment. What we see is our shared commitment to carry peace in our hearts and carry that peace to our families, our clans, our communities, and the world. I've known folks to come to peacekeeper training for many reasons. probably each person has their own reasons. Some people come because of a drive to make a better world. Some come to make peace with their own mind. Some come to learn to be in good relationship with their family or with others. Some come in search of a spiritual community of like minds. And some come from a love of a certain teacher that they've found here. I'm sure there are many more reasons. And the Peacekeeper program is the foundational teaching that comes to us from the family of Sunray's spiritual director, Venerable Dhyani. The program is rooted in Native American wisdom of caretaker mind and living in right relationship within the circle of life. And the program also helps each of us answer the question, how do I live a good life? And now Olivia is going to play a recording of a story I told at our last Peacekeeper training. And we hope you can join us at our next one, which will be in October. It is the practice of a peacekeeper to generate heart resonance, to resonate compassion. And it is likely in this time, right here, right now, we all feel the call to send waves of compassion to those at war. And that's one of that sending the heart resonance and those waves of compassion is part of our theme this weekend, part of our business as peacekeepers. And Venerable tells a story about how wars start, and this is my version of her story. Wars start with a thought. Let's say I've had a really difficult night. Maybe the baby was teething and crying all night long, and maybe my neighbor was playing music that since I was awake with the baby, it was another irritant. And maybe I woke up grumpy for those and maybe other reasons. And I think about as I'm sitting there in the morning, I think about how much I hate my neighbor's music. Not only is it loud, it's not even the kind of music I like. Whatever, I start my day when I take my baby out in the stroller to try to soothe her. I see another neighbor who asks me, how's it going? And I say to them, oh, I do not appreciate my neighbor's music. Oh, I know, says my neighbor. And she has her cell phone with her so she can text a few people. Oh, well, before I know it, that neighbor has a couple other neighbors gathered together and they all decide to go talk to the first neighbor because we're supposed to take things to the source, right? So there are a few of them. And when they walk up to the door, they kind of jostle each other a little by accident. One of them knocks over the bird bath and it breaks. And another one in the group trips over that, falls, bumps their head. Well, in the excitement of trying to take care of the fallen person, they forget to clean up the bird bath. And no one's answered the door. And so they rush out to take care. But someone has posted some of the melee on Instagram. And a few people make snarky comments about the neighbor or about that kind of music or loud music or something. And the neighbor's angry when she discovers the broken bird bath. And some friends of hers show her all this stuff that's going on Instagram. She's not even on Instagram, but she sees that, very upsetting. And the group of them confronts a group of the other neighbors who happens to be out walking their dogs. And one of the dog walkers, gesticulating wildly, flings their bag of dog poop and it lands right in the face of the opposing neighbors. And then there's a little pushing and, a war has begun. And we ask ourselves, how did this happen? How did this start? Well, the antidote is remembering how it started, that it started with just a disgruntled thought on a morning of, I don't like that music. So the antidote is to take care with our thoughts, to understand that those grumpy thoughts will arise. We have them in the morning sometimes, or other times. And it's up to us to recognize them, to catch them like in a net. Catch that first domino before it falls and offer them up for transformation, surrounding them in love and light, and to laugh at ourselves. Laughter is good medicine.
Thank you, Reverend Meli. That was wonderful. Something to think about. Now it's my pleasure to introduce Julie Jeffery, who has a background in psychology and specializes in medical massage, where she assists her clients in managing chronic pain, autoimmune disease, and post-surgical recovery, drawing on her extensive integrative medical background. Julie is a peacekeeper, and she grew up in Milford, a small Michigan village, and then moved to Southern California. In 2004, she left this congested area and moved to the redwood forests of Big Sur. Here, Julie had a great awakening. Through this experience, she was guided to a triad of teachings, ELO, Cherokee philosophy, and other teachings of North American indigenous cultures, Tibetan Buddhism, and Creon teachings channeled by Dr. Lee Carroll. Julie has studied and practiced with Venerable Dhyani Ywahoo in the Peacekeeper training for 15 years. Julie is co-chair with Olivia of the 2022 Sunray Elders Gathering and currently lives and practices back home in Milford, Michigan. Julie is going to introduce our wonderful UN representatives. Thank you.
Wado, Olivia. Hello, dear co-creators, convergent friends, and timeless family. My name is Julie Jeffery, and I am a member of the Sunray Peace Village. Tonight, it is with great joy, respect, and honor that I introduced to you Sunray Peace Village's 2 long-term NGO representatives who have been applying and living the Sunray Peace Village's principles in an international level at the United Nations, Sandra Sheridan and Carolyn DiCarlo. Sandra Sheridan, MS, PT, grew up in the mountains of western North Carolina and lives in the New York City area. She is a physical therapist specializing in manual therapies and therapeutic exercise. She's been a student of Venerable Dhyani Ywahoo and Sunray Meditation Society for 30 years and teaches in the Sunray Peacekeeper training. As a Sunray Peacekeeper, she serves as the Sunray NGO representative to the United Nations. She has been the main UN NGO representative for about 25 years. The focus of this work has been on Indigenous peoples' rights and utilizing the Sunray peacekeeping principles within the UN system and internationally in support of Indigenous peoples. Carolyn DiCarlo is a longtime student of Venerable Dhyani Ywahoo, who lives and works in New York City. With Sandra, she serves as a Sunray NGO representative to the United Nations. Her work as a celebrated architect has taken her all over the globe. Carolyn's approach to form, function, and design is unique. She believes that we are profoundly affected by our surroundings and makes environments that you feel, not just see. In combining her vast knowledge of ancient architecture and sense of style, she creates homes, work environments, public spaces, and her latest venture, designing sanctuary spaces. Carolyn has been featured in the New York Times, the Washington Post, NPR, the Associated Press, Mind Body Green, Oprah Magazine, Elle Decor, and House Beautiful. She just finished her book on how to create well-being in your home, which will be out next year. So with no further delay, Sandra, Carolyn, the time is yours. Wado.
Thank you. Greetings. Thank you, Noel and Bob, for having us here. Thank you to the co-creators Convergent Conversations. Thank you, Olivia, for inviting us and organizing this. And thank you to World Unity Week for us to be able to be a part of these 99 days of peace, all leading up to the International Day of Peace, which is September 21st. As you heard, Sunray Meditation Society has been an NGO with the UN. NGO means a non-governmental organization. We've been an NGO since 1992, and the goals of our work there as Sunray NGO are centered on raising awareness of Indigenous peoples' issues, land rights, mineral rights, water, food security, language, cultural rights, basic human rights. We strive to provide places where Indigenous voices can be heard, especially on an international level, since we're within the UN system. And with those voices, we're planting seeds of peace, seeds of good cause, and seeds of right relationship.
And we have two main goals on the committee. The first being to protect the rights of Indigenous peoples globally and advocate for their cause wherever we feel that we can assist. So we have the protection of their rights, but then on the other hand, we also serve to educate people as to the collective and unceasing wisdom of Indigenous peoples who have persevered in their traditions and beliefs. Indigenous peoples have basically been the guardians of our planet, the self-proclaimed and in a humble way, caretakers of the planet. They have actually forests that are managed by Indigenous peoples store 38 billion tons of carbon, which balanced the CO2 emissions in 2013. So the remedies are available. We, on the committee, we feel that it is the right of Indigenous peoples, as true of all peoples, for the rights of peace of mind, of security over their land, territories, and of their resources. And this historically has not been the case.
Who are Indigenous people? Well, there's an estimated 370 to 500 million Indigenous people on the planet. That is actually more than the entire population of South America. It makes up 6.2% of the global population. They speak an overwhelming majority of the world's estimated 7,000 languages. And they're spread all across from the Arctic down to the South Pacific. Some of the native people, the Indigenous people of the Americas, or Turtle Island that we might know of, the Lakota, the Wampanoag, the Cherokee, the Navajo, and on and on and on, because there are many. In Central America, say in Guatemala, the Mayan, as you saw on the video, the Aymara in Bolivia, the Inuit and the Aleutians of the circumpolar region, the Sami of Northern Europe, the Aborigines and the Torres Strait Islanders, and the Maori of New Zealand. They all have a special relationship with their land and hold diverse ideas on development based on their own values and their own visions and their own needs and their own priorities. As we've been saying, Indigenous people are the holders of unique languages, knowledge of systems and beliefs, and possess invaluable knowledge of practices for the sustainable management of the natural world. They have a special relation to and use of their traditional lands. Their ancestral land has a fundamental importance for the collective physical and cultural survival as peoples.
And language is so intertwined with culture and knowledge that even the UN has recognized the importance of language to maintain traditions. They have done the year of Indigenous languages and the decade of it as well, acknowledging it. There are, for instance, in the US, there's 245 Indigenous languages, and over half of them are nearly extinct. So, and when language is destroyed, many traditions get lost with it. So they literally get lost in translation.
Carolyn and I work on the NGO Committee on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. And this is a committee of representatives of NGOs who are accredited within the UN system. And it's very diverse. It's very diverse. We have, say, Indigenous organizations such as the United Confederation of Taino People, the Ramapo Lenape Nation, the Schaghticoke First Nations. We have religious NGOs such as the Claretian Missionaries, Missionary Oblates of Mary Immaculate. And then we have other NGOs such as the National Space Society, Tribal Link Foundation, the Salvation Army. The Salvation Army has an International Peace and Justice Coalition. The Temple of Understanding, Physicians for Social Responsibility, and International Society of Doctors for the Environment. So just on the committee itself, we work with people from all nations and all cultures and all faiths and all traditions. And each of these representatives who are on the committee, their NGOs work around the world. So the information that they receive from the committee can go out from there to their organizations and societies in all these different countries.
And it's interesting to see on the committee because you've got the very diverse Indigenous population around the world. And then you also have the committee who comes from these very diverse perspectives, from the medical field, from social work, politically, Indigenous people defending their right to their land or their resources, educational perspectives. People have joined, have really integrated in academia some of these causes. And so it's, for me, it's actually been quite a journey in realizing the complexity of Indigenous issues and also the breadth of the diversity of the Indigenous peoples around the globe. So the United Nations and this NGO committee, it serves as a nexus point where Indigenous people from all over the planet can meet together and share their aspirations, their problems, and to be heard on an international forum. And this is one of the few places on the planet that this exists. And of significance that we as Sunray representatives, we take our cues from the Indigenous peoples, that we listen to what they're saying, and we don't go into a situation and say, you know, this is what you're supposed to do. Indigenous voices really need to be heard. And in the course of it, it's been a learning curve of just realizing that, first of all, Indigenous peoples have oftentimes really identify with their tribes or nations. And so it's a delicate balance in this committee of presenting a cohesive Indigenous voice when there are very strong individual voices as well.
So what do we do on the committee? Just a few ideas to share a little bit more. One of them is advocacy, but it's a very gentle advocacy. We write letters to presidents, to the Pope. We try to connect Indigenous organizations with UN representatives, that type of thing. Another
thing that we do on the committee is, as I said before, education. We have the unique position of having access to so many Indigenous peoples, and to be able to share with others. And in this time, we've also been getting a broader audience in terms of having Zoom access, that in some ways that it's actually broadened the reach, which is a wonderful thing.
Yeah, yeah. Also, being on the committee in this world, you really see the reality of the lives of Indigenous people directly from them. Not someone else talking about it, but it's really, they're able to say what's happening in their life and what's going on, and about their individual tribal identities, about what's happening on their lands, like with extractive industries and all the mining that's going on, biopiracy, effects of cultural trauma.
Yes. And we also just create this, as I said before, this forum, this worldwide forum, so that we do hear from some very, very difficult situations in terms of around the globe. So it's been a privilege to be a part of that and to hear those voices directly. We also, in the course of it, is particularly in terms of education, create side events as part of both the Indigenous Committee, and then we also have a health subcommittee. And some of the topics have been around some very compelling issues. Some of them are, for instance, health and mental issues around of Indigenous peoples during COVID and what their reality was. We've done another side event on rematriation and reinstating the mother wisdom traditions in Indigenous tribes, particularly in the Northeast. We have done a side event on the comparison of Ayurvedic, Indonesian, and Latin American healing traditions. So it's really these very extremes of trauma on the one hand, and this ever blossoming wisdom on the other.
The most recent side event that we did was one for the Commission on the Status of Women this spring. It was Indigenous Women, Wise Protectors of Mother Earth, Leading Climate Action. So we had different Indigenous women from North America. We also had a woman from Northern Sumatra. A number of women from Sumatra speak too about what's going on over there in their initiatives. So our role as Sunray Peacekeepers, as Venerable Dhyani Ywahoo says in her book, Voices of Our Ancestors, the Peacekeeper holds the vision of peace for all beings in all worlds as a beauteous expression of harmony and balance, resonating through thought, word, and deed. The Peacekeeper sees all in good relationship, perceiving the underlying unity of creation. This Peacekeeper training program is to bring forth a most great peace in the hearts of people and the earth. So the Peacekeeper training program, one of the aspects of it, which Reverend Meli spoke about, was 4 fundamental qualities of mind. They are mindfulness, Peacekeeper consciousness, caretaker mind, and continuity of mind. Mindfulness, to be able to listen to these vastly different perspectives with an open and discerning mind. The ability to see things as they are, to be fully present in the moment, and to manifest right thought and right action. And the United Nations is indeed a wonderful place to be working on this and to be developing this. It really is important to be able to know in your mind and in your words and in your actions what you're saying to others and what you're hearing from others. Then there's Peacekeeper consciousness. supporting peace on an international scale, and recognizing Indigenous understanding of right relationship on every level. Recognition of one's responsibilities and power to manifest peace through right relationship with all the family of life.
There are two other fundamental qualities of mind that are a part of Peacekeeper training. The third one is caretaker mind. So as we spoke about before, Indigenous peoples are most aware of their privilege and their duty on the planet to caretake the planet, honoring the earth as a living being and sowing the seeds of abundance and harmony. And in a sense, we're somewhat caretakers of the caretakers on the committee, of being able to protect them as they're protecting in a precious way land and nature and life and all beings. We're doing whatever we can do to caretake so that they can. There's a quote that I'd like to tell you. It's from Tyson Yunkaporta. He wrote, he's an Aboriginal thinker, and he wrote the book Sand Talk, and he said, "We think something terrible must have happened in the North to make people forget, causing science to have to start all over again from scratch rather than building on what went before." And this is kind of the state of the difference that sometimes we're being made and sometimes painfully aware of on the committee. The fourth precept is continuity of mind, where the thought and action determines one's larger reality, so that what we think and what we believe creates our reality. So understanding the cause and effect, and that we are not separate beings, that we are all a part of nature, and to be able to share this vision with them is, it's actually supporting us in our Peacekeeper mission. So it's a wonderful journey.
Wado, thank you.
Thank you so much, Sandy and Carolyn. I know that we've been going about an hour, a little bit more. Now we'd like to open it up to questions and answers, comments, and I see that there are some already in the chat. And there's one that Noelle is asking, do other countries have NGOs that are representing Indigenous citizens, or do you do that for all? I think that's to you too.
Yes, there are a lot of NGOs. NGOs are the non-governmental organizations, so they're not the government. There are a lot of NGOs that are Indigenous NGOs within other countries, or work with Indigenous peoples within other countries. But the committee and the NGO Committee on the Rights of Indigenous People and other UN mechanisms are kind of unique in that Indigenous people from all over the world can come there and be heard. So it's really a unique place in that way.
Yes, thank you. There's another question here about the Peacekeeper training program, and from Noelle. And Reverend Meli, how long is the Peacekeeper training program, or Sandy? And is it online, and what is the cost? And I just would say that there is a link in the chat to the Sunray Peacekeeper training that you can save the chat and you can then go and find out. But if you would give us an answer to that.
The Peacekeeper training goes semester by semester, and generally there's a semester that begins in October, and we have a 3-day Peacekeeper training, and it's online and in person. And then there are study calls that happen on Zoom, usually 2 or 3 study calls spaced out over the next few months. And then there's a spring Peacekeeper, a spring semester that starts in often March, April, like that. And yes, on the sunray.org website, they'll announce those dates, and also you can, the cost, I'm not, it varies, it changes. So you'd have to go to the website to find out about that.
Well, that's a good reason to go to the website, but a lot of the reasons. I'm just blown away by all you have done for so long. And it's just mind blowing. A lot of people, you've been working at peace and whatever, but not too many can say they can add the NGO component to it. And, that's really super extra special. I do invite everyone, I'm going to put it into gallery view now. And I'm also going to show all the non-video participants. And as an extra treat, I'm going to allow everyone to start your video and to unmute yourself. And if you have a particular question, if you want to speak to one of our guests, I would suggest that you use the raise hand button under reactions. So if there's anybody that wants to jump into the conversation while we have this not going to say a triad, you're more than that, but these priest troubadours here, or if you just like to say hello, but please join in this conversation. It is so sacred. So.
Thank you, Noel.
Thank you.
Bob has a question. The UN can be bureaucracy and by its nature, a challenge to find common ground across many cultures and national priorities. Can you give an example of a success and a not so successful of navigating this environment? Good question.
Well, I could actually start with just the frustrations that I felt. As an architect, I'm used to manifesting things right now. And this is the opposite. This is the patience, the endless patience of understanding this glacial movement that happens in this glacial way. And then, as you suggest, Bob, retreats a bit, goes back. I think Sandy can even go, she's had a longer history than I have in terms of the some of the rights that have over the years, if you want to talk about it, Sandy.
Yeah, the United Nations is a bureaucracy. It's very complex. It's very multi-leveled. It really takes actually years to begin to understand the system, the language, because there's a whole language. People are talking about UNDP and UNEP and UNESCO and all this kind of stuff. So it really, and then you have to figure out kind of what's behind things. It's really complex, and it's difficult. It's not easy. Just to say I've seen many positive things happen in the Indigenous world, and the mechanisms within the UN that recognize Indigenous peoples. I mean, the International Day of the World's Indigenous People started in 1993 and has been going since then. That's every August 9th. Since then, there's been the Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues, which is a 2-week event every year where Indigenous people from all over the world can come to the UN headquarters in New York. I mean, not since COVID, but generally speaking, come to the UN headquarters in New York and speak at the UN, where it is attended by governments, UN agencies, NGOs or civil society and other indigenous organizations. And then, I mean, the big thing, of course, is the Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. That took 23 years to pass. And you know, people say, oh my goodness, you know, like that's forever, you know. But if you think about, there's 193 countries in the General Assembly. The General Assembly votes on this. So everyone who's working on this has to deal with those countries, the governments within the countries, in order to get this passed. So no, of course it's going to take 20 years. I mean, you know, if you look at what's behind all that, yes, it's going to take a long time. And then what happens is the government may change. You know, somebody else may be voted in a country over in Australia or whatever. And then you have to deal with that. So, you know, finally, the Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People was passed in 2017. So that's a huge, huge, huge success.
Wow, thank you. Thank you. So, being those representatives to the UN is practice for you to understand how quick progress happens in the US Congress, since there's more than 193 countries there. That's
yes,
good.
yes.
Good. Thank you. And, Carolyn, thank you.
Thank you for your patience and, you know, the frustration that, you know, it must be to deal with that all those years. I mean, I don't know if I could do that. I couldn't keep my peace, I don't think. Is there anybody on here who's actually been a member of the United Nations?
What do you mean being a member? You mean, is there a country here?
Yeah, I think there's somebody. He knows.
I think there's somebody here.
Oh, there he is.
Go ahead.
Yes, well, good evening again. I'm originally from the Seychelles Islands in the Indian Ocean, the Republic of Seychelles. I'm presently in Quebec, or I've been in Quebec now since 1988. Back in 1979, I was in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Seychelles. And at that point, I was the head of the UN department in the ministry. And I did attend a couple of UN General Assemblies and interacted also at the International Civil Aviation Organization here in Montreal. So from the perspective of a small island state, I got a taste, or at least maybe a taste or a dislike, I don't know, of how cumbersome it can be in this multilateral process of the UN and all these agencies. I was even at one time, I went to the International Labour Organization annual conference in Geneva. But probably the way to make any progress for be it indigenous communities or small island states is to group, to have, to develop lobbies, you can say. Like Seychelles is a member of the small island states. So the island states across the world are considered like the canaries in the coal mines with regards to what's happening with the environment and the climate. So to get your voice across, Seychelles on its own would, I mean, each nation has one vote in the General Assembly, of course, but you really need to work in collaboration with others. And at this point in time, more than collaboration, the spirit has to be a spirit of co-creation. Like we have to come together to try and see what's the best solution for the planet and for humankind as a whole. So it really calls for another level of thinking. But I may be getting ahead of myself here. But I thank you for the work you've been doing for Sunray at the UN. And I am a little aware of the challenges and how it takes a lot of patience. And I don't think there's any better way than the UN system at the moment. So we have to make the best we can with it. There's an organization called the Coalition for the UN We Need. I don't know if you are involved with that, because there are people who think the UN could be better, because the UN that was thought of in 1945, and now where we are, it ought to, there are so many changes that could happen. Anyway, there's hope. Thank you.
Thank you. And I want to just put in a plug for Tech's wonderful deep time platform, where he has really deep thinking people come and give courses, and it's really powerful. Perhaps Tex, you would be kind enough to put it in the chat.
Yes.
They were doing wonderful things during World Unity Week, and I'm sure it's going to continue during the 99 days.
Yes, I will do that. One thought, I mean, like, I've come to realize that there may be a need for all peoples of the world to consider ourselves as indigenous to the planet, like, and not see the world, I mean, see humankind as the indigenous, and then there's us or the other. You know, we are all indigenous to the planet. And in that context, there's a need, when we say the deep time perspective, is to consider ourselves on this planet in the vast universe that's been evolving, as far as science can tell us, evolving since 14 billion years. And if we have that perspective of the context of our existence, we may, you know, with awe and wonder, have a sense of humility that would move us to collaborate for the common good, which is desperately needed where we are now, with you know, so many existential crises converging, be it climate, be it inequities, you know, wars and all that. We really need another level of thinking.
Absolutely, and that's what I have learned from you, from the Deep Time Network, which Viola is also very active in, and they have courses and things coming up. And I did put the link to that in the chat, so I highly recommend it. Tremendous thinkers and doers, philosophers and scientists. It's a wonderful, wonderful group. Let me go back to the elders gathering, the 38th elders gathering. Now, is that open to anyone? And is that going to be a hybrid event, or only, tell me a little bit more about that. Please. DiCarlo, please.
Everyone is welcome. And it is going to be live streamed on Zoom from the Peace Village.
And then, you know, I noticed in the film that they were mostly, from what I saw, you know, the elderly elders. What, you know, in all the other groups that I work with, the question is, how do we get the youth involved? How do we get the youth involved? So I'm wondering, is your organization also struggling with this, or you got the magic solution for us?
I'd say we're struggling with it also. We're having a couple of weekends before Elders Gathering, we're having a music festival called a Peace Fest here at the Peace Village, and hoping that more and more young people come because they're putting it on and it's their music. And we're hoping that young people come and fall in love with the Peace Village, just like we did when we were younger. Yeah.
And the Peace Village is not a residential facility, is it?
No, it's a retreat center. And often there's a caretaker during the summer months that is living on the land, and people camp. People come and camp and volunteer and help put together the elders gathering.
And then how many, acres is it there? And just how big a campus is it? Or
good question.
27 acres.
27?
Yeah, 27 acres. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just think of all the prayers. Go ahead. I'm just think of all the prayers that have been said there over the years. That right there.
Yeah. I just want to say that one of the things that we're doing this year at the Elders Gathering is, in addition to showing, having access to the Peace Village documentary that you just saw a snippet of, which has won awards, we are releasing the second one. Oh. And Catherine Marielle, my dear, dear, dear friend and longtime community member, passed over a couple of years ago. She was the director and the filmmaker producer who envisioned this documentary series. Mm-hmm. And the second one is Passing the Flame, which is all about the youth. And one of the things that happens on the third day, because we light the fire on the first day, Friday, and always we have an Abenaki elder, because we are on the unceded land of the Abenaki, give the prayers first. And then on Saturday, we have, talks, and we have dances, we have prayers, we have food. And then Saturday is a very big day where we end with this wonderful healing ceremony, which is also beautifully filmed on the Peace Village documentary, with the dancers and the choir and the ministers who open their baskets. And we all join in with chanting, and anybody in the who's there in the arbor or sitting around, all these people who come. Usually that night is when many people from the public will come, because they love the healing ceremony, and it's free. And then the next day we have the Family of Life, where we actually have some young people who have been up on the mountain and done a coming of age for the girls, and going off and on the mountain for the boys. And so it's a wonderful time. Or babies have been born and they're blessed. You saw one in the film who's now a teenager and is going to be at the next Peace Fest, I hope. But also there are marriages. We also have a burial mound where some of our most beautiful Sunray members their ashes are there. And so we're really a community, and we're a global community. And what's wonderful is that Catherine had this vision of going to the Sunray community and the elders and saying, can we please film you? Because she was looking ahead and seeing that they were not going to be around all the time.
Right.
It took a while for her to be able to really, speaking of the UN, have everybody agree to this, not only the elders, but also the community members, because we had been taught by Venerable Dhyani and the elders to keep things bundled, because they were still living with the tracks of that taking away of their rights in the 1800s. By, on pain of death. I mean, awful things happened. And so one of the things that's beautiful is that we are carrying on these traditions in a way that is appropriate for people who are non-Indian, but that also draw young people in and make it feel very sacred to them. Wouldn't you say so, Reverend Meli?
I hope so.
Yeah.
It is my great hope that that is true. And, you know, to speak to why it took so long to film the healing celebration, that's the first time that's ever been put on film.
Right.
And in many situations, in most nations, you don't film people praying. It's just not done.
Right.
And we used to, we used to have the rule that there would be no cameras in the arbor. So that was we all had to come to agreement about letting that go forward.
Yeah. And yet, as we look at our beautiful, wonderful donors, elders, some of whom have passed that we saw in that film, how beautiful to have their teachings go on for perpetuity, that we can share them with you tonight.
Right.
And we have more elders that are coming, that wonderful elders. So the elder you saw, grandfather Mike Bastine, was the one who spoke about, they don't listen. He was one of the students of Mad Bear Anderson, who was one of the very first elders to call forth Venerable Dhyani's 5th generation to come out of hiding and share the teachings. And Mike and Venerable Dhyani, not Venerable then, but Dhyani, as young people, went with him to meet with the Dalai Lama. So they were, there's really, Venerable's books are wonderful, and we put them in the chat. Voices of Our Ancestors is her first book that was published in 1987 by Shambhala and is still available, and it's still very relevant. And also Tales from her Tales from the Cherokee, which is a shorter book, but also wonderful. But she has many teachings that you can go on her website, beautywayproductions.org, and we put it in the chat. And you can also browse around sunray.org and the Elders Gathering and see if you want to join us. We'd love to have you. It's by donation this year. If you come in person, we have food for you. And we also ask people to volunteer while they're there, because we're all in this together. And it's a very special happening. And Reverend Mel, you're going to have us sing a peace song, right? You were going to do that? Do you want to do that? To end? Do you think that's
you want to close with a peace song? I think that'd be fabulous.
Yeah.
Well, I was actually thinking I would ask people to sing their favorite peace songs, but
well, it doesn't really come across the Zoom very well when you try to sing in unison.
Yeah.
Back to you.
Okay. Let me get my drum.
We can mute ourselves.
Okay.
Yeah.
While she's preparing for that, I just wanted to share that this, the decision, that very long thought out decision to allow photography or video for prayers and things like that we're in a time, it seems, not for me to decide for others, but we're in a time where it seems a lot of Indigenous who have kept that sacredness private have made choice to make the sacredness more public. I think of the Kogi in South America and
Right.
some Indigenous from Australia to help us in this time that
Right.
we white folk have been asleep and need
Right.
this wisdom and reverence of that to be available to us. So again, recognizing that it's a decision for each of these cultures, not for us, but what a blessing it is. What a blessing it is.
Well, I just want to tag on to that because Olivia, you also know a lot about the Dominarian culture in Northern Italy. And they used to be very closed.
Right.
And they didn't share their wisdom. And now they're like, no, everybody, all hands on deck. We have got to get this information out. And that's who we're going to have this Saturday on our noon call is going to be Crotolo Sesamo from Dominher. And he's going to be talking about community.
Yeah.
So and then, the person we have after that, Joy Gilfillan, she's also talking about from fear mongering to joy producing community action. So all of a sudden I'm looking at my July schedule going like, okay, it's all about community. So many different ways.
Wonderful.
But with that, thank you everyone for being here. And I think it would just be wonderful, Reverend Meli, if you closed us out. Thank you, thank you, thank you. This has been sacred time.
Well, then I'll sing a water song.
Yeah.
This song, it's a song about water woman, Amahea or Agea Ma. And it contains the phrase in Cherokee, Ama Gunida, which is water is life. Agea Ma, Agea Ma, Ama Gunida Mahea, Haya Haya Ama Gunida Mahea, Haya Haya Ama Haya 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 Ama Haya 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 Amahaya Ya Yahoo Hiya Haya Haya Yahoo Hiya Haya Haya Ama Hiya Haya Haya Ama Hiya Haya Haya Amahia Ageyama 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 Ama Gunida Mahia Haya Haya Ama Gunida Mahia Haya Haya Ama Haya 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 Ama Haya 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 Amahia Ya Yahoo Hiya Haya Haya Yahoo Hiya Haya Haya Ama Hiya Haya Haya Ama Hiya Haya Haya Amahia. May the gentle rains of grace fall all over Mother Earth, wherever they are needed. Mado.